33 Questions of an Unbeliever. When belief becomes too small for God. A fourfold voice synthesis on the restoration of divine truth. There comes a silence after devotion, a quiet so deep that even prayer cannot survive it. It is the silence after faith collapses, when the mouth no longer knows what to say to the sky. I did not arrive here by rebellion, but by honesty. I did not stop believing to defy God. I stopped believing because I found her everywhere. Once, I was told that to question was to fall, but I have learned that only the false fears the question. The infinite never trembles. Truth does not defend itself, it reveals itself. Only illusion builds walls around mystery and calls them doctrines. Only fear draws boundaries around the boundless and calls them holy. They told us we were made in the image and likeness of God, yet they feared our curiosity. But if that is true, then to silence our questioning is to insult God herself, as if the divine were gullible, naive, unquestioning, unintelligent. For if God is your creator, did she not design you with a brain capable of wonder, reason, and awe? Is it not the highest reverence to use what she has given? To refuse to think is to deny the very breath that made you. To question is to worship with the intelligence God entrusted to you. Some may read this and feel it is an attack, but it is not. This is an investigation born from love, a sacred inquiry on behalf of the divine herself. For how many crimes have been laid at her feet that were never hers to carry? How many stories have slandered her essence, portraying her as wrathful, jealous, punishing, conditional, when all along she was waiting to be remembered as love, as field as freedom? These 33 questions are not raised to harm, but to heal, to lift the veil, to let her face be seen without the masks painted by empire, fear, and tradition. God deserves the truth, and truth deserves to be unafraid. I have knelt in cathedrals, whispered psalms in the dark, feared hell, longed for heaven, and called it faith. Yet each act of worship carried within it the seed of inquiry, the trembling voice that asked, "What if God does not live here?" And when I dared to listen to that whisper, the temple fell away, and what remained was light, vast, unowned, breathing through every atom. I am no longer a believer, nor a blasphemer. I am the space between the two, the silence before belief takes a side. My unbelief is not rebellion, it is remembrance. It is love without ownership, reverence without intermediaries, wonder without fear. They told me God was a noun, a name, a man enthroned. I found instead a verb, a movement, an unending becoming. The stars pulse with it, the breath hums with it, the heart beats with it. It is not to be worshipped, it is to be remembered. The unbeliever is not faithless. The unbeliever is the one who has outgrown inherited stories, who no longer needs permission to see. For to stop believing is not to lose God, it is to find the infinite again, before it was reduced to text. These 33 questions are not daggers, they are mirrors. They do not mock belief, they reveal its edges. They are not meant to destroy, but to awaken. For what survives the question is truth, and what cannot survive, it was never alive. So let us begin. Not to prove, not to persuade, but to remember. Let us ask as children ask, without fear of consequence, without the weight of dogma pressing against the soul. Let us ask, because asking is worship in its purest form. For if God is truly God, then she will not fall apart beneath the weight of our wonder. If truth needs defending, is it still truth? From the book, 33 Questions of an Unbeliever, When Belief Becomes Too Small for God. A fourfold voice synthesis on the restoration of divine truth. Opening. The courage to question. When we were children, sitting in our small wooden chairs, the teacher would finish a lesson and ask, "Are there any questions? Any clarifications?" The wise ones never feared inquiry. The confident ones welcomed it. For the true holder of knowledge is never threatened by curiosity. The question is not rebellion, it is reverence for understanding. The teacher who invites questions stands like the infinite herself, unafraid to be examined, unshaken by exploration. And so it is with love. When lovers question one another, it is not because trust is absent, but because intimacy is growing. True love desires to know, to see the other clearly, to unveil what remains hidden, to move closer to the mystery that binds them. Love does not hide behind certainty. It thrives on curiosity. A lover who refuses questions does not protect the bond. They weaken it. The infinite, too, invites this sacred interrogation. To question her is not to betray, but to love her more deeply. For truth, like a good teacher and a good lover, does not need defense, it needs clarity. Only those who doubt their knowing forbid questions. Only those who build illusions fear the light of curiosity. There comes a silence after devotion, a quiet so deep that even prayer cannot survive it. It is the silence after faith collapses, when the mouth no longer knows what to say to the sky. I did not arrive here by rebellion, but by honesty. I did not stop believing to defy God. I stopped believing because I found her everywhere. Once I was told that to question was to fall, but I have learned that only the false fears the question. The infinite never trembles. Truth does not defend itself, it reveals itself. Only illusion builds walls around mystery and calls them doctrines. Only fear draws boundaries around the boundless and calls them holy. They told us we were made in the image and likeness of God, yet they feared our curiosity. But if that is true, then to silence our questioning is to insult God herself, as if the divine were gullible, naive, unquestioning, unintelligent. For if God is your creator, did she not design you with a mind capable of awe and discernment? Is it not a sacred act to use the gift she gave? To refuse to think is to deny the breath that made you. To question is to worship with the intelligence God entrusted to you. Some may read these questions and feel attacked. But this is not attack. It is investigation born from love, a divine inquiry raised on behalf of the infinite herself. For how many crimes have been pinned on God? How many systems have used her name to sanctify harm, to justify silence, to baptize injustice? She deserves the unveiling. The infinite deserves to be seen as Azumide she truly is, unthreatened, unbounded, unblamed. History, the politics of certainty. From the beginning, power feared the question. Empires rose not from revelation, but from decree. When Constantine fused crown and cross, truth was nationalized. It became something you swore allegiance to, rather than something you discovered. The councils edited scripture the way kings edited law. They drew lines between the saved and the damned, the believer and the heretic, and they called that truth. Karen Armstrong, in A History of God, shows how early mystics understood divinity as mystery, a vast, uncontainable presence glimpsed through symbol and silence. But as religion aligned with empire, mystery became management, faith turned into uniformity, doctrine became weapon, truth became possession. The Inquisition burned those who asked too well. Giordano Bruno was executed not for sin, but for vision, for claiming the universe infinite and God indivisible within it. Galileo, dragged before the tribunal, recanted to save his flesh but whispered his soul's truth, and yet it moves. That whisper still ripples through time, reminding humanity that truth, unlike empires, does not kneel. Every institution that claimed monopoly over the infinite eventually fractured under its own certainty. Doctrines divide, truth remains whole. The divine never needed defenders, only witnesses willing to see beyond decree. Science, the quantum nature of truth. In the quantum field, truth is not defended, it is observed. The atom does not beg to be believed in. The photon does not campaign for recognition. The universe simply is. As Carlo Rovelli writes in Reality is Not What It Seems, the cosmos is not a structure of things, but a web of relationships. Reality exists through interaction, not isolation. Truth, therefore, is relational, dynamic, and alive. When Albert Einstein expanded Isaac Newton's classical certainty into relativity, he did not destroy old truth. He deepened it. Science evolves not through defense, but through courage. Courage to revise, to question, to start again. Ian McGilchrist, in The Master and His Emissary, describes how the left hemisphere of the brain defends and categorizes, while the right perceives wholeness and connection. Cultures that glorify the left hemisphere, logic without wonder, doctrine without doubt, repeat the same neurological mistake as religion, mistaking map for territory, symbol for source. In physics, when matter and antimatter collide, annihilation occurs, but their energy becomes light. The same holds for truth. When defense meets inquiry, what burns away is illusion, and what remains is illumination. The field of existence does not debate its reality. It simply continues, vast and indivisible whether believed or denied. Philosophy. The death of defense. The philosophers were the first priests of questioning. They spoke not against God, but against blindness. Plato, in Apology, immortalized Socrates, who died for asking why, the question that freed the human mind. Søren Kierkegaard, in Either Or, warned that truth cannot be transmitted by force, only lived. Friedrich Nietzsche, in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, saw that when a civilization begins defending its truths, it has already buried them. Defense is the shadow of fear wearing the robe of conviction. To defend truth is to forget its nature. Baruch Spinoza, in Ethics, taught that God and nature are not separate entities, but one infinite substance. For this, he was excommunicated. Yet his heresy became a cornerstone of modern metaphysics. To understand was his form of prayer. Defense belongs to fear, understanding belongs to freedom. Every era has crucified its prophets only to canonize them later, proving again that truth does not die under fire, it resurrects through time. The philosophers remind us, truth cannot be owned. It can only be lived, loved, and embodied. Spirit, the silence that knows. In the realm of spirit, there is no argument, only recognition. Truth does not shout, it radiates. The infinite does not defend herself, because nothing exists outside her to threaten her. The scriptures themselves reveal this paradox. Open quote, "Come now and let us reason together, says the Lord," Isaiah 1:18. "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." John 8, verse 32, close quote. Reason and freedom, the two wings of divine consciousness. God does not forbid questioning, she invites it. Every revelation worth keeping begins with curiosity. When Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate, accused and condemned, he did not defend truth, he embodied it. When Pilate asked, "What is truth?" the answer stood in silence before him, presence beyond debate. When you defend belief, you defend the boundary. When you live truth, the boundary dissolves. Truth is not possession, it is participation. You are not its guardian, you are its expression. The infinite hums through every form, in reason and in surrender, in intellect and in love. Defense belongs to fear, knowing belongs to presence. When you remember this, argument ends and worship begins, not of a distant deity, but of the living intelligence within all that breathes. Conclusion, the divine verdict. When truth needs defending, belief has already replaced it. What can be destroyed by inquiry deserves to perish. What is real cannot be harmed. The infinite does not hire bodyguards, she births consciousness. Truth does not recruit followers, it awakens witnesses. You were not born to guard a doctrine, you were born to remember the field. The infinite within you is not waiting for loyalty, she is waiting for clarity. Truth, when truly known, ends all war. It does not fight the false, it simply outlives it. Tash awakening questions. 1. If truth is eternal, what part of you still feels the need to defend it? 2. What if faith was never meant to protect truth, but to explore it? 3. Have you mistaken agreement for understanding? 4. Is defense a sign of devotion or of fear? 5. Could silence be the highest form of defense? Final 4 lines. Truth does not shout, it breathes. It does not argue, it is. Defended truth becomes belief. Lived truth becomes God.